Teachers and future educators, welcome to another episode of Good Day Teachers. Today, we will be featuring a group of practice teachers who has reached out to us to hear our thoughts regarding their lesson plan. And since it is the reason why the show was founded, we have responded to them positively. To do such, we asked them a series of questions relating to the whats, the hows, and whys of their lesson plan. Afterwards, we scrutinized whether the process, the components, and the rationale behind their lesson plan are in coherence with one another, and if they follow certain conventions on trend of the 21st century instruction. So without no further ado, here is our interview footage with them.
Well, we foresee it to last for 120 minutes. That's for 2 hours. And we set the target of 85% of the class to meet the objectives. But that is just the target. Of course, the goal is to always have the entire class meet the objectives.
Agreement and disagreement. The act of agreeing and disagreeing with courtesy is a skill students should acquire. This is because it will develop certain values like expression and appreciation of perceptions. As we are endowed differently, and courtesy, this turn promotes coexistence amidst different views. By the way, this will be thought through the process of listening.
No problem. Agreement occurs when there is similarity or mutuality of ideas or dispositions. Otherwise, there is disagreement. When expressed with courtesy, respect takes place.
We specified three objectives. First, at the end of the discussion, students shall be able to demonstrate agreement and disagreement with conviction through dialogue. Second, incorporate nonverbal cues in expressing agreement and disagreement in a conversation. And third, recognize perception by affirming or negating with courtesy.
Following the classroom routine and recall is the activity. We call this as James the Explorer. This will serve as the motivation as well as provide learner a foresight or hint of the lesson.
Sure, we will present a situation which is this after winning the best feature article in NSBC. James was given a free tour to visit the Southeast Asian countries for a month. When he returned to school, the principal asked him to share his experience through a speech comparing and contrasting countries, since the idea is to teach the concept through listening. James' speech will be recorded, but before playing the speech, the teacher will pose to guide the questions first, which are what are the specific Southeast Asian countries James visited, and how does James describe each countries, and we will ask each student on their own perspective and their own opinions on how James describe any countries, and let them talk if James described that Indonesia is actually one of the cleanest country. We will also let them speak their thoughts on what they think about that.
After the activity, analysis will follow. The teacher will pose the following ideas and generate opinions from the class. The ideas are: A. We are different from one another. B. These differences is mediated by preferences and perceptions. And C. I may like what you do not like. The teacher will then wrap up everything by emphasizing that we are afforded with different perceptions. We should not invalidate others based on our standards, and we should aspire to understand one another to coexist.
Following the activity and the analysis is abstraction or the lesson proper. The discussion begins by defining and elaborating the concept, providing affirming, party agreeing, and negating expressions and utilizing them in an example. Discussing the different nonverbal cues one may use when engaging in agreement or disagreement, and elaborating the ways one can agree or disagree with courtesy.
These scenes will realize the abstraction and the script of which were provided by the teacher. But before portrayal, the teacher will set first the following questions as guide for the observers. 1. What are the similar and differing views of the speakers in a particular scene? 2. What are the nonverbal cues evidenced in the speakers as the dialogue proceeds? And 3. Does the exchange of ideas observe courtesy? Why or why not? After which, the teacher will call volunteers.
To determine whether the students have met what are expected of them, they will be tasked to perform a role play. The class will be divided into 5 groups, and each will present a scene showing a courteous agreement or disagreement to a subject of their choice. The class will be given 15 minutes to prepare, but the presentation shall not exceed to 5 minutes. In assessing students' performance, the following criteria shall be used. Exchange of dialogue or points of view, weighing 10 points. Use of affirming, negating expression, weighing 7 points. And showing courtesy with 3 points. To determine whether the students have met what are expected of them, they will be asked to perform a role play. The class will be divided into 5 groups, and each will present a scene showing a courteous agreement or disagreement to a subject of their choice. The class will be given 15 minutes to prepare, but the presentation shall not exceed to 5 minutes. In assessing students' performance, the following criteria shall be used. Exchange of dialogue or points weighing 10 points. Use of affirming or negating expression weighing 7 points. And showing courtesy with 3 points.
We patterned this lesson plan according to the learner-centered approach, interactive method, and created specific activities like James the Explorer, reflection, and show more.
That ends our interview. And now, let's proceed to the highlight of the show, the scrutiny. First is the objectives. There are 3 objectives included, which are demonstrate agreement and disagreement with conviction through dialogue, incorporate nonverbal cues in expressing agreement and disagreement in a conversation, and recognize perceptions by affirming or negating with courtesy. Looking at these objectives, we can see that 2 domains are included: the cognitive and the affective domain. Based on the revised Bloom's cognitive taxonomy by Lauren Anderson, this lesson plan includes applying and analyzing category. The first objective can be categorized as applying, as it seeks students to demonstrate the concept after instruction, whereas the second can be treated as analyzing, as it asks students to incorporate nonverbal cues, which is only possible if they understand the demand of a particular situation achieved through analysis. The third objective is under the receiving category of the affective domain of David Krathwohl. This is because it engages students to be aware or sensitive to something. Now, let us see how and when these objectives are realized in the lesson. Let us focus on the abstraction. Before students can perform the concept, they should be afforded first with the knowledge of the concept. For example, before students can demonstrate agreement or disagreement with conviction by using affirmative and negating expressions, they should know first what are these expressions. The same is true for the second and the third objective. Knowledge is a prerequisite of process. Theory comes first before application. Luckily, the abstraction process is structured in a way that satisfies these. The abstraction process starts with a description of the concept, the elaboration of affirming and negating expressions, which hits the first objective. The explanation of non-verbal cues one may use to agree or disagree, satisfying the second objective, and the elucidation of the ways to agree and disagree with courtesy, exemplifying the third objective. Moreover, the first and the second objective is further realized in application. Here, students are tasked to role-play a scene which features agreement and disagreement with the use of affirmative and negative expressions. Having the acting students perform, the observing students will be afforded the ways on how to do such, whereas the third objective is further realized in the analysis. By enlightening students the nature of perception, they will be able to acknowledge that sometimes what they think and believe may be incongruous to those of others. Hence, they will be motivated to agree and disagree with courtesy. Now, let us proceed to the procedure, specifically to the routine and recall. The very first part of the procedure, as mentioned by the aspirants, is classroom routine or recall. Classroom routine serves its purpose for attendance and for teachers to address students' concern, should any, which could influence their interest to learn. Hence, it is always advised. On the other hand, the recalling of the past lesson allows students to revisit the previously learned concept, providing them rehearsal and exercise for storing. This practice is patterned to Gagne's 9 events of instruction, claiming that recalling of the previous discussion is a prerequisite to any instruction. Activity. Authentic material and presetting questions as strategy are featured in the activity. It made use of a customized recorded speech contextualized to provide students familiarity. And events featured in the activity, like the National Press Conference, is not foreign to students. By using this, it would trigger their schema or previous experience, which would facilitate the ease of listening. This is vital as, according to the top-down processing model, comprehension of an acoustic material does not ultimately rely on what the students hear, but including their experience as well relative to that material. Further, it can be seen that the teacher preset questions before playing the speech. Presetting questions allows students to understand the purpose of the material, provides them a clear focus, and reinforces assessment of sorts. Unlike the other macro skills, students don't have the opportunity to revisit or review an acoustic material. Thus, before words vanish in the air, students should grasp and comprehend them. Presenting questions lighten this burden, because by having such, students know the specifics or what ideas need a focus. On this, they can already disregard irrelevant ones. In turn, whatever assessments or testing is constructed, they can ace it. Analysis. It appears to me that the purpose of analysis is to establish an emotional connection between the students and the lesson. This is impressive. It has been argued by educational theories, just like the information processing theory, that students easily forget ideas what they do not perceive as important. Hence, by establishing an effective connection and by enlightening them what the concept does, students' motivation and the urge to learn are reinforced. Application. The application serves as the monitor whether students are learning, in the process of learning, or not learning at all. In this lesson plan, an authentic process is used. Material or process are considered authentic if it can be manipulated or if it provides a first-hand experience. By having students engage in role-playing, they will be provided the opportunity to demonstrate or practice the concept. Instead of a pure discussion or talking, strategies like this are encouraged. This is supported by Edgar Dale's cone of learning, positing that students retain 90% of what they say and do. Assessment. The planned assessment is another authentic. Students surely will be given an opportunity to showcase their learning. Also, we can see that the three objectives are accounted. The role play allows students to demonstrate agreement and disagreement with conviction by using affirming and negating expressions and incorporate nonverbal cues and show courtesy in the conduct of such. Rather than having a pen and paper test, assessment of these forms are ideal and encouraged. In the 21st century instruction, the trend is authentic assessment. Assignment. The assignment is creative and personalized. The assignment included in this lesson plan is something students can easily empathize. Going back, this lesson plan is for grade 9 students, and psychosocially speaking, they are now under the intimacy versus isolation stage. Hence, topics like this are appealing and attracting to them. Let us go to the explanation of the approach, method, and techniques. The approach utilized according to the teacher aspirants is learner-centered approach. This approach regards and places students in the center of the instruction as they are believed to have the capacity to construct meaning. The approach is manifested all throughout. In the recall, instead of having the teacher mentioning the previously learned ideas, students are prompted to do it. In the activity, students' possible experience are acknowledged. Concisely, it is not founded on the perspective and maturity of the teacher. In the analysis, students' opinions are encouraged. Rather than elaborating the importance of the concept in the point of view of the teacher, students' opinions are elicited first. The same goes in application. The method used is not traditional like a mere question and answer. Rather, it is student focusing. This promotes metacognition. Students themselves are afforded the view as to what extent they understand the concept. In the same vein, the assessment is not teacher-dominated like pen and paper test. Rather, the students are given the chance to manipulate the assessment. In the assignment, students' maturity are accounted. The assignment is patterned according to the possible topic that attracts them. In the entire process, it can't be denied. The focus is the student, making this learning observed the learner-centered approach. The method used is interactive method. Since the approach is learner-centered, interaction between teacher and students is focal. In the recall, the teacher asks students questions. There is interaction. And the analysis, the teacher prompts students' opinions. There is interaction. The activity, application, and assessment are held in groups. There is interaction. Individuality in this lesson plan is only the assessment, and that is understood, of course. Hence, interactive method is manifested. This lesson plan includes 3 activities, which are James the Explorer, Reflection, and Xiao Mo. James the Explorer aims to set the atmosphere of the instruction, motivating students and providing them hint of the lesson. Reflection provides students a depth understanding regarding the significance of the concept. Xiao Mo serves to give students view about the extent and degree they learn the material. The lesson plan featured today is of excellent merit. Coherence is observed, and the trends of 21st century instructions are incorporated. Thank you, John, Joanne, Shira, Geraldine, and Asnia for sharing your time with us. And to all our viewers, if you think there are aspects or portions of the lesson plan in which we poorly evaluated, do not hesitate to comment that down, and we'll be more than happy to discuss it with you. Thank you, until next time. Bye-bye!